Welcome to According to Sam, folks. This is episode 325. Hope you've had a good holiday weekend. Enjoyed the 4th of July. We are officially in the 250th year of the United States of America. In the next 360 days, I guess, we will be in our 350th year. I think that's how it works. And then next 4th of July will be the, or not 250th year. And then next 4th of July will be our 250th birthday. And then we will be in our 251st year. So between now and July 4th of next year, we're in our 250th year. It's a milestone. As we approach, our 250th birthday. And a lot of people have been asking the question, will the United States be around, for 250 more years? And, the way we're divided right now, the way this country is going, the amount of debt that we're in, I mean, it's an interesting question to ask. And I want to ask that question today as we get into today's podcast. I have a great podcast for you. We want to talk about, will the United States last for 250 more years? And what the United States would look like if we make it another 250 years. Every 4th of July, inevitably, there is a debate in the Black community about if Black Americans should celebrate the 4th of July. Black Americans, a lot of Black Americans feel that 4th of July is not a holiday they should celebrate because on January or July 2nd is when the Declaration of Independence was actually passed and signed. It was on the 2nd, but we celebrated on the 4th. But in 1776, when that document was passed in the Continental Congress and independence was declared, slavery still existed. There were millions of Black people that were enslaved all over the United States, and Black Americans don't feel that the 4th of July represents them, and they shouldn't celebrate it. And it's a huge debate every year. This speech from Frederick Douglass is inevitably every year used as an example of why Black Americans should not celebrate the 4th of July. This was a speech that Frederick Douglass gave in Philadelphia in 1852. And it's used every year as an example. Look at what Frederick Douglass said in this speech and how profound his words were. And his words were very profound. Frederick Douglass, his autobiography was a book that I can credit with changing my life. Frederick Douglass, in this autobiography, he writes how he was a slave in the South and then was sold as a child to a family in Baltimore. It was a family that had a child that was his age, and he wouldn't, play with the kid that was his age, but he thought that he didn't know that when he was a child that the kid that he was raised alongside, and who was, basically around the same age as Frederick Douglass, he kind of considered that kid as a contemporary, someone who he played with, and when the husband was a lawyer, he would go off to work, and then the mother who was raising the child that was the same age as Frederick Douglass, who was the slave, she would teach them to read and teach them, basically how to read is what, and things that, a mother would teach a young child as they're growing up. But she would also teach Frederick Douglass because he was the same age, but he was a slave. And then one day he writes in his autobiography that the patriarch of the house, the father, comes home and sees that the mother is teaching Frederick Douglass to read alongside of their son, and Frederick Douglass witnesses the father chastise the wife and say, you can't teach them how to read, that if you teach them how to read, they're going to be nothing but problems. So Frederick Douglass says that it was in that moment when he saw this man chastising this woman over the fact that she was teaching him to read, that he realized that the bonds of his slavery had nothing to do with the chains that they bound him in. It was the chains in his mind, that keeping him ignorant was the real secret to slavery. So he went about teaching himself how to read from that point, and eventually becomes, an educated man, that he teaches himself how to read, and then he escapes and goes to the North. And that's the beginning of Frederick Douglass. But Frederick Douglass gives this speech in 1852. And again, it is used every year as an excuse and to show this is why Black Americans should not celebrate the 4th of July. As a matter of fact, that's the reason that Joe Biden, and not only Joe Biden, Trump had been floating this before Joe Biden, to pander to Black voters, and a lot of Black voters wanted it, was to make Juneteenth a federal holiday, a national holiday, because it was the day that represented the day that all Americans were free for the first time. I personally did not agree. I'm from Texas. I've been celebrating Juneteenth my entire life. Did not agree with making Juneteenth a national holiday, but it's a national holiday to kind of compete with 4th of July, because Black Americans feel more comfortable celebrating a holiday that represents, everyone's freedom. And they don't feel that the 4th of July represents a date and a celebration that Black people should celebrate, that everyone wasn't free in 1776. I think it's completely ridiculous. But I want to play every year since James Earl Jones did his rendition. He read the speech from Frederick Douglass that Frederick Douglass gave in Philadelphia in 1852. And James Earl Jones, before he died, he did a reading of this speech, and they play it on the Democracy Now! Show. I think he may have done it for Democracy Now!, but they play it on Democracy Now! Every year on 4th of July, and they did so. I want you to, it's pretty long, but I want you to listen to the speech that Frederick Douglass gave in 1852 in Philadelphia. Take a listen.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Today in this special broadcast, we begin with the words of Frederick Douglass. Born into slavery around 1818, Douglass became a key leader of the abolitionist movement. On July 5th, 1852, in Rochester, New York,
I'm sorry, I thought it was Philadelphia, so I guess this was in New York that he gave this speech.
1852, in Rochester, New York, Frederick Douglass gave one of his most famous speeches, "What to the Slave is Your 4th of July?" He was addressing the Rochester Ladies Anti-Slavery Society. The legendary actor James Earl Jones, who died last year on September 9th at the age of 93, read the historic address during a performance of Voices of a People's History of the United States, based on Howard Zinn's iconic book. The late great historian introduced the address.
Frederick Douglass, once a slave, became a brilliant and powerful leader of the anti-slavery movement. In 1852, he was asked to speak in celebration of the 4th of July.
Fellow citizens, pardon me, and allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? And am I therefore called upon to bring our humble offering to the national altar and to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude for the blessings resulting from your independence to us? I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common. The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me. The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems were inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days of the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is a constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty, an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your denunciation of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and solemnity, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy, a thin veil to cover up crimes that would disgrace a nation of savages. There's not a nation of the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour.
Now, I want you to pay attention to the fact that in this speech, Frederick Douglass several times, and he just did there, makes reference to this very hour. This post that is shared here on X that I saw over the weekend. It's that segment that of the speech that you just heard him say, and at the end it says, at this very hour. Well, what very hour was it? He gives the speech in 1852. So the very hour that Frederick Douglass is talking about in where slavery was at this point, where he is disgusted by slavery. He's been part of the abolition movement for years, fighting, lobbying members of Congress to do something. This is a call to action. And this is a very powerful speech that he is giving, that Frederick Douglass is giving, and it goes, like fire all over the North. This speech that Frederick Douglass gives on the 4th of July around the time of the 4th of July, a couple of days after the 4th of July in 1852. It goes like fire all over the North as a call to action. We need to do something. At the same time that he gives this speech, people are reading Uncle Tom's Cabin. And if you know the story of Uncle Tom's Cabin, when Harriet Beecher Stowe wrote this book, people were it lit a fire under them, just like this speech lit a fire on them. We have to do something to end the institution of slavery. That's what motivated people like John Brown and his sons that raided Harper's Ferry and tried to free the slaves. They were motivated by Uncle Tom's Cabin and these fiery speeches like the one that Frederick Douglass and many more people were motivated to do something. It was a call to action is what Frederick Douglass was doing in this speech.
Nation of savages. There's not a nation of the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument, is needed. Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour forth a stream, a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke. For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm.
We need the storm. Fire. I would light a fire under these people to do something. It's a call to action again. We need the storm, is what Frederick Douglass says. Do something to end the institution of slavery. This is in 1852 that he's given this speech.
For it is not light that is needed, but fire. It is not the gentle shower, but thunder. We need the storm, the whirlwind, the earthquake. The feeling of the nation must be quickened.
Do something.
The conscience of the nation must be roused.
Do something.
The propriety of the nation must be startled. The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed, and the crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
So Frederick Douglass was calling the nation out in 1852 to do something, And people were motivated to do something over the next 8 years between the time where Frederick Douglass gives this speech and the time when the Civil War starts in 1860. These are the most intense times, the most intense years into the build up to the Civil War, when the nation finally says something has to be done. Abraham Lincoln says that something has to be done. But even before Abraham Lincoln, this is why people consider James Buchanan one of the worst presidents, because this was building up during the Buchanan administration, and Buchanan did nothing to quell the tensions and everything that was building up into would eventually become the Civil War. I mean, when Abraham Lincoln runs in 1860, they didn't even put him on any of the ballots in the southern states. He had to run the table in the northern states just to become the president of the United States. And then when he wins, on the day that he wins is when the secession starts, and when, the Civil War starts shortly after that. But Frederick Douglass is calling the nation out, saying that, no, we cannot celebrate as slaves, or while my people are still enslaved. I'm free now, but while my people are still enslaved, I cannot celebrate the 4th of July with you. But 8 years later, he's calling, the nation and to do something and to take action. 8 years later, one of the bloodiest wars, the bloodiest war in American history starts, brother against brother, to finally do something to end the institution of slavery. So I think that it's ridiculous to say that that blacks cannot celebrate the 4th of July. And there's many reasons to celebrate the 4th of July. I had someone comment because I posted this, reposted, someone had posted the excerpt from the Frederick Douglass quote or from the Frederick Douglass speech in 1852. And then I posted that inevitably every year someone, makes reference to this speech that happened in 1852, and that it was a call to action for America to do something. And 8 years later, America did something. They did something to end the incident, and it cost in blood. It cost this country a lot to do something to end the institution of slavery. But then I had someone comment underneath my post and say, do you celebrate the 4th of July? And I assume this person is probably Black because, the way that they interacted with me, do you celebrate the 4th of July as a Black man? Because this is the controversy in the Black community every year about the 4th of July. And I answered, I'm an American. Why wouldn't I celebrate the 4th of July? And then they asked me, I don't know who this person is because they don't have a picture and hiding behind an alias. But this person says, what does the 4th of July mean to you and what are you celebrating? And I posted, I'm celebrating the end of colonialism and monarchy. That's what I'm celebrating. And everybody, not only in America, everybody should celebrate, all over the world should celebrate the 4th of July as the end of colonialism and monarchy. Even if colonialism and monarchy didn't end in your particular area on July 4th, 1776, what happened on July 4th in 1776 was the beginning of the end of colonialism worldwide. The fact that the American colonies were able to defeat the most powerful army on the planet at that time and gain their independence, that gave courage to other independence fighters. In Mexico, Juan Hidalgo says that he was inspired by the Americans' revolution. Toussaint in Haiti, he says he was inspired by the American Revolution. The French Revolution, the Jacobins, they were inspired by the American Revolution. All of these revolutions that set off to end colonialism all over the world started in America in 1776. Ken Burns was on Face the Nation over the weekend, really good interview. And they get into this discussion about independence and the Declaration of Independence and the Revolutionary War. And I want you to listen to what Ken Burns says here. And I couldn't agree with him more. Take a listen.
How should we think about the Declaration of Independence, this period in America, in our present day?
First of all, I think the American Revolution is the most important event since the birth of Christ in all of world history.
I absolutely could not agree more. When I heard this and I saw Ken Burns say this, and this guy is a historian, and I'm a bit of a historian too. I know a little bit about history. Yes, if you understand history, the American Revolutions, the Declaration of Independence, July 4th, why everyone should be celebrating July 4th, because it is the most important event since the birth of Christ. I couldn't agree more that if you understand what was going on throughout Europe, the European monarchies, the feudal system, the system of the world and the system that the world lived under prior to the American Revolution. If you understand that, it is like Ken Burns says here, it is the most important event since the birth of Christ. I completely agree with him. Completely agree with him. And although Black Americans were not included in the franchise when the franchise was created in 1776, if there was no franchise that was created in 1776, if we ever did get free from slavery, and there's still a lot of slaves, people that are enslaved on this planet today in 2025, they're slaves. But if we were able to get free from slavery and there was no franchise created in 1776, we would have no franchise to join, to be a part of. That the franchise that was created in 1776, yes, everyone wasn't included in that franchise. Everyone didn't have the ability to vote. Women didn't have the ability to vote. Slaves didn't have the ability to vote. And each of these groups had to fight to be included in that franchise. But if there was no franchise created, we would still be living under monarchy. We would still be living under colonialism. So what Ken Burns says here, that the American Revolution, the Declaration of Independence, the most important event to happen since the birth of Christ, that is not hyperbole at all. I completely agree with him.
It's this period in America in our present day.
First of all, I think the American Revolution is the most important event since the birth of Christ in all of world history. I mean, it turned the world upside down, which is the cliche. Before this moment, everyone was a subject, essentially under the rule of somebody else. We had created in this moment a very brand new thing called a citizen. And this has had powerful effects. It's going to set in motion revolutions for the next 2+ centuries.
Absolutely correct.
All around the world, all attempting to sort of give a new expression to this idea that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. And that's a big, big deal in world history. So what happens here is, I suppose you could, miss the point and say it's a quarrel between Englishmen, but it is the beginning of something absolutely new in the world. And that is something to celebrate and to understand, too, that it comes out of so much division that's going on between the states. People in New Hampshire and Georgia they're
They
from
could
different...
they could, what he's getting ready to say here, someone from Georgia and someone from New Hampshire in 1776, they might as well have been from two different planets. They might as well have been from two different planets. And they were both Englishmen. They both had their roots back in England. They're, both English colonists, but they could have been from two completely different planets, is what Ken Burns is about to say, and how divided that's what the snake is about. The snake that Benjamin Franklin, in one of his papers, he puts when they're debating getting together, and he cuts the snake up into 13 different pieces, and it says join or die underneath it, because these people did not want to join together. These people did not want to get together. They didn't like each other. The people in the South called the people in the North Yankee Doodle Dandies. The people in the North called the people in the South unsophisticated, uncivilized. These people were so different from one another, and for them to come together and to get past their differences, to come together, to join together, to say that we're joining together against the king, to declare our independence. And then what you got to understand too is that after they declared their independence, they still had to fight for their independence. The Declaration of Independence was only them declaring their independence, but King George was going to send his army to impose his will, and they had to defend their independence
in the world. And that is something to celebrate and to understand, too, that it comes out of so much division that's going on between the states. People in New Hampshire and Georgia they're from different countries. They believe different things, that you could have the divisions of loyalists and patriots. You could have all the things that are roiling in these colonies, and understand that out of that, we could still figure out a way to come together.
So he basically goes on. This is a very good interview. I recommend watching the entire interview. But he goes on to say that we've always been divided, that the country's always been divided, even, before the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and even after the Revolutionary War, and we're still under the Articles of Confederation, and before they meet in Philadelphia to hash out the new Constitution. People were divided. The colonies were divided. The states were divided, building up to the Civil War. Slavery was an issue in the beginning. In the beginning, slavery was highly debated, because in the North, they didn't really like slavery. They were against slavery in the North. Colonies or states like Vermont had outlawed slavery even before the Revolutionary War. Pennsylvania, they'd outlawed slavery before the war was even over. So this was a point of contention from the beginning. But that's the point that Ken Burns is making here. So now I want to get into, I got plenty of time. I want to get into what took place over the weekend. And I think this happened on Friday, that they finally passed President Trump's agenda. And the big, beautiful bill passed in the Senate. They finally got it through the House, and Trump signed it on Friday. I told you that I have problems with a lot of the bill. I have problems with the tax cuts. They say the tax cuts on the high end. I don't have problems with the middle class tax cuts, but the tax cuts on the high end, I have some issues with those. And they say that it's going to, jumpstart the economy, and we're going to get all this growth. Okay, all right, show me. Show me is where I am on that. But there's a lot of good stuff in the bill. I love the money that ICE is getting and the money that we're getting to secure the border for good. Where we'll get into what I'm talking about when I say secure the border for good. But this showboater, who is the minority leader for the Democrats, Democrats are in trouble. They're in a lot of trouble. And I've been telling you about this, and we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks. They're having trouble getting people to donate to them. They're going to have to borrow money to pay their bills at the DNC. These guys are polling on average below 40% favorability. And they just got their butts kicked last week. Trump just racked up win after win after win. He racked up all these Supreme Court wins. The Supreme Court took away one of their biggest tools to fight Trump, is using the district courts, these lower courts, to issue injunctions on Trump's executive orders and Trump's agenda. And that's a major tool that they were using. Not necessarily that they figured that they were going to win these court cases when these court cases eventually ended up in the high court, in the Supreme Court. They just wanted to use these lower courts' injunctions to slow down the process, to slow down Trump's agenda. So the Supreme Court took that away, said these lower district courts can't issue these, nationwide injunctions. There was a couple of other, I think, Supreme Court rulings that he got last week. He got NATO to up their spending to 5% of GDP, ended a war in Africa, in the Congo, got the ceasefire with Iran and Israel, and what else? He got the big, beautiful bill passed. Last week was just like the best week any president has had in my lifetime. In this first year of the Trump second administration, I never seen a year like this, where Trump is just racking up all these wins, getting all of his agenda passed. So anyway, got the big, beautiful bill passed. This showboater wanted to get up and do a filibuster, and he wanted to break McCarthy's record and grandstand and show that we're doing something. We don't have any power, but at least we can come out and speak. And I want you to listen to what Hakeem Jeffries says here. He starts getting into the Declaration of Independence, and he does some crafty stuff here that I want to break down for you. Take a listen to Hakeem Jeffries.
But then, as far as I can tell, there was also a second interesting part of the Declaration. It was the indictment against the king. And I commend everyone in this chamber, all of the American people who may be observing the proceedings in the House of Representatives, particularly as we approach July 4th, to read that Declaration of Independence. Perhaps I may even enter it into the record later on today. Because we're here, Mr.
This guy is
Speaker,
such a clown,
to take our sweet time on behalf of the American people to make sure as best we can, to cover all of the things that as Democrats we're fighting hard to defend during this extraordinary moment of assault directed at the American people as a result of this one big, ugly bill that will hurt everyday Americans in order to reward billionaires with massive tax breaks and then exploding the deficit.
I think that it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious that he says then exploding the deficit and the debt. Like, these clowns care about the deficit and the debt. They passed $3 trillion in stimulus by themselves without a single Republican vote in Biden's first 2 years. You think these people care about the deficit and the debt, but they're all singing the same tune because they were trying to peel off some of these, deficit hawk Republicans to not vote for it. So then they didn't have enough votes to get it passed. So they started saying, what about the deficit and the debt? You guys don't care about the deficit and the debt? You think you're fooling, clown?
With massive tax breaks and then exploding the deficit and the debt in ways that will jeopardize the future of our children and our grandchildren. But the aspirational part of the Declaration of Independence, of course, that is often
he's sucking on candy quoted while he's speaking.
But then if you read
what a clown.
Other parts of the Declaration of Independence, extraordinarily written document, it reads like an indictment against the extremism of the king.
It absolutely is.
It reads like an indictment against the kings. I think of King George. It reads like an indictment.
I think it was King George. You don't know? You don't know that it was King George? You don't know that it was King George, Hakeem?
It reads like an indictment against the kings. I think of King George. It reads like an indictment against King George's flood the zone strategy.
So now he's getting into trying to make an analogy between Donald Trump, who was democratically elected, who was elected by 77 million plus Americans, won every single swing state, won the popular vote, but he's making a relationship between Donald Trump and King George. Now, this guy is such a clown.
It reads like an indictment against King George's shock and awe strategy. It reads like an indictment against what I think may have been called Project 1775, which is what brought us to Project 1776. And you look at this indictment, and one of the things it alludes to, it talks about, is the notion of the king's effort to stop the assimilation of people from other parts of the world into the United States of America. So we understand that from the very beginning of this great country, there was a recognition, of course, of the importance of immigration to the success and vitality of the United States of America.
So he's absolutely right. I want to I just want to clarify what he's talking about here, because a lot of people don't know this, that, all right, so this is the Declaration of Independence, and it gives the the preamble, when the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And it gets all down here and it starts laying down the specific complaints that the colonies had with King George and why they were declaring their independence. And this is the one that Hakeem Jeffries is making reference to. It says, he has, making reference to the king, he has endeavored to prevent the population of these states for that purpose of obstructing laws of naturalization and foreigners refusing to pass, others to encourage their migration hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. So what this is about and what the colonists gets to the heart of what the colonists were complaining about is that they wanted more immigrants to come to the colonies, to grow the colonies, to help the colonies seize more land to the West, more Indian land. And they wanted, the King George to allow these migrants to come in from all over Europe, not just from England, but from Holland, from Germany, from France. Whoever wanted to come over, mostly Europeans, that they wanted these people to come over to increase their numbers. And so they would have more power. They would be able to go out and get more lands. And this is one of the complaints that they levy at King George, because not only King George, but the British Parliament, they did not want the colonies to grow. They didn't want the colonies to grow because they were afraid if the colonies grow, that then they would get too large and then they would declare their independence. And ironically, that's the fact that the king and Parliament weren't allowing them to grow and weren't allowing these new migrants to come in and become citizens. That was the part of it, because these are colonies again. They wanted them to come in and be able to become citizens. The king and the Parliament and the gentry in England were saying no. They wanted to keep the colonies small so they can maintain control over them. And ironically, that was one of the things. So that's what Jeffries is making reference to here is this excerpt from the Declaration of Independence. He's making a relationship till today and saying, see, Trump is like King George because he's not allowing these immigrants to come in, and the people, just like they did in 1776, they wanted the immigrants to come in. No, nothing can be further from the truth. The people who elected Donald Trump don't want the immigrants. The people who elected Donald Trump ran on the fact that I'm going to get rid of all the immigrants. I'm going to deport them. I'm going to secure the border. And he won. He won not only all 7 swing states, he won the popular vote, running on a platform that I'm going to deport the immigrants. So the people, we the people is what the Constitution starts at, that this is after the Declaration of Independence. I don't know if Jeffries knows that, because, he conflates the two, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, as you go further into that speech. But after the Revolutionary War, when they finish the Constitution, the very first 3 words are "we the people." We the people. So the people want now, in 1776, the colonies, they wanted more immigrants to come in to grow their numbers. And that's what the people wanted. The king was not giving the people what they wanted, was more immigrants. Now, today, in 2025, the people who voted, we the people, we want the immigrants deported, and we want the border secure. And that's what Trump ran on. That's what he was elected on. So the will of the people is being expressed by what Trump is doing. There's no relationship. And that's what this crafty liar, this snake in the grass, is trying to draw an analogy between what was happening in 1776 and the colonists wanting the king to allow more immigrants to come in. And that's what they wanted. And that was one of the, issues that they put down in the Declaration of Independence and why they wanted to separate from the king. In 2025, the people, the voting public, voted for deportations. They voted for the immigrants to be deported and for the border to be secure. There's no relationship, but that's what these snakes do. That's what people like Hakeem Jeffries do. It's completely deceptive.
To the success and vitality of the United States of America. And let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, so there's no misrepresentation. As House Democrats, we understand the importance, the urgency of securing the border.
Well, why didn't you understand the urgency of securing the border when Joe Biden was president? Joe Biden led record numbers of people in the country in his first 3 years. Record numbers. So we're just supposed to say that those people that came in Biden's first 3 years, record numbers, they can just stay? And you say, well, we recognize the need to secure the border now? Why didn't you guys recognize the need to secure the border back when Biden was president in his first 3 years, Hakeem?
As House Democrats, we understand the importance, the urgency of securing the border. We believe that our immigration system is broken and that it should be fixed in a comprehensive and bipartisan way. So many leaders in that effort, so many big ideas were willing to partner in a bipartisan way. Pramila Jayapal, Linda Sanchez, Adriano Espaillat, Tom Suozzi, so many others. Veronica Escobar, we want to partner to fix our broken immigration system.
Then why didn't you guys do that? Why didn't you guys partner with Trump in his first administration? You fought him every single step of the way in ways that I can't even get into, that they fought Trump when Trump wanted to reach a bipartisan immigration deal in his first administration. They obstructed him. They obstructed him in every single way. This guy is full of it. He was on The View earlier today, Hakeem Jeffries. And I want you to listen to what he says here. They get into this topic of immigration. This is one of the big points of contention that they have with this new bill that Republicans just passed and Trump just signed, the big, beautiful bill, because it gives ICE $100 million, increasing their budget. The deportations are going to increase. That was another win that Trump got from the Supreme Court, that he does have the right to call in the National Guard and that he can use the National Guard, the military, to back up ICE if he needs to. And Tom Homan says that he's going to get this done. So that's what the major point that all these Democrats are complaining about, because they know that because this bill passed, that the ICE raids and the ICE arrests are going to increase. But that's what people voted for. But this is what Hakeem Jeffries said on The View today.
Now, some Democrats, amid the criticisms of ICE right now due to these ICE raids, have started calling for defunding ICE. Do you think that's effective going into the midterms, and do you support those calls?
Well, I definitely think that, we need aggressive oversight as it relates to the overly aggressive behavior that we've seen, from ICE, from the Department of Homeland Security. It's not what the American people actually, in my view, voted for.
That's not what the American people voted for, in my view. That's not what the American people voted for, in my view. And this is a talking point over and over again. Democrats are saying the American people didn't vote for deportations. The American people didn't vote for this. The American people didn't vote for this. That's a 100% lie, Hakeem. You just keep lying.
Overly aggressive behavior that we've seen, from ICE, from the Department of Homeland Security. It's not what the American people actually, in my view, voted for. Yeah. Donald Trump and Republicans promised to go after violent felons, but instead they're going after law-abiding immigrant families. And
so that's the talking point, that that people didn't vote for the Trump administration to deport everybody. All these, millions of people that came across the border under the Biden administration, that people didn't vote for Donald Trump to deport everybody. They voted for Trump to only deport violent criminals and people that are committing crimes. That's a lie. People voted for mass deportations. Trump ran on mass deportations. Trump did this interview last May 2024, May 1st, 2024. That's when this article came out. The article is making reference to a sit-down interview that Trump did with Time magazine. Look at the headline. Trump explains his militaristic plan to deport 15 to 20 million people. In May of 2024, Trump was running on this. This was part of this article that he does with Time magazine. I love it because it says, where does it say? It says that he didn't give any specifics. Where is it? He didn't give any specifics. Where did it say that? I can't find it. He gave few specifics is what it said. But the one thing that he was specific on, but it says the one thing, the topic on here, let's just read this right here. The topic on which Trump had most concrete details, the thing that he was most specific about in this sit-down interview, and I couldn't find it up in the beginning of this article where he says he wasn't specific about a lot, but the one thing he was specific about, the topic on which Trump gave the most concrete details, is his plan to deport many millions of undocumented immigrants. Trump says he's going to use the military to deport 15 to 20 million people that Biden led in the country. This ain't just, violent people who committed crimes. This is a lot of people that shouldn't have come over the border during the Biden administration. Trump ran on that. He ran on that. People were holding mass deportation signs at the RNC. We want mass deportations. We want these people out of here. We not only want the border secure, we want the people that came in under the Biden administration out of here. And Hakeem Jeffries and other Democrats keep saying over and over again that people only voted for Trump to deport violent criminals. No, we voted for mass deportations of millions of people that came in under the Biden administration that shouldn't have come in. It doesn't matter if they committed crimes or not. They committed a crime when they came into the country illegally, and people voted for that. This isn't the king going against the will of the people. This is an elected president doing what the people want. People voted for this. Hakeem, take a listen to this poll.
Documented immigrants.
Polls,
so we have slightly
multiple polls. Take a listen.
Questions, but these were all taken within the last month, and there's real uniformity here. That's what I really think you see, real uniformity. Deported all immigrants who are here illegally. 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what
these are polls that were taken in the last month. Nevertheless, what you say that people voted for before the election last November, or maybe they didn't know Trump had committed to deporting 15 to 20 million people, and they went out and voted for him, not knowing that he was going to use the military to deport 15 to 20 million people, and say, oh, they didn't know that before the election, and Trump pulled a fast one on them. They didn't vote for that. These are polls that were taken within the last month, and the majority of people want all people deported. Doesn't matter if they're here, are doing crimes or violent, whatever. Yeah, we want them deported, but we want a bunch of other people that shouldn't be in the country illegally deported as well. And the majority of the country across multiple polls want everybody deported. If you're here illegally, deported.
Documented immigrants. So we have slightly different questions, but these were all taken within the last month. And there's real uniformity here. That's what I really think you see. You see real uniformity. Deported all immigrants who are here illegally. 55% of the New York Times. Marquette, 64%. CBS News, 57%. ABC News with a slightly different question, 56%. So what you're seeing essentially here is a very clear indication that a majority of Americans, in fact, when they're asked this blunt question, which I believe gets at the underlying feelings, do in fact want to deport all immigrants who are here illegally. There's no arguing with these different numbers because they're all essentially the same across 4 different pollsters.
So if they say yes today-ish, how has that changed over time?
Yeah, this is where I think you get very interesting. And so we'll take a look at that ABC News question in particular, because you can really see that there's been a massive shift from when Trump was first getting into office 8 years ago, right? Deport all undocumented immigrants. You go back to 2015, I'm going to come to your side of the screen, it was 42%. Hello. Go to 2016, it was 36%. Look at where we are now. This was taken at the end of last year, 56%. This is 20 points higher than it was just before Trump got into office the first time. So feelings towards immigration in this country, feelings towards undocumented immigrants and deporting all of them have become considerably more hawkish. And I think that gives Donald Trump much more leverage to go with the American people and sort of have these hawkish, some might say harsh, different rhetoric and also issue-based sort of going after immigrants who are here illegally. And so I think the American people are going to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt to do what he wants to do, at least if you believe these blunt questions, including this one.
Deport them all. Deport everybody. That's what the American people want. It's not what the king wants. It's what the American people want. It's what the American people voted for. And that's what the elected official is doing. He's doing what the people voted for. And polls that are taken within the last month, people are still saying, yes, deport everybody. We want everybody gone. Doesn't matter if they committed a crime or not. Joe Biden let millions in. Millions, broke records with the amount of people that Joe Biden let in this country from the beginning, from the moment he took the oath of office. He ended stay in Mexico, remain in Mexico. He opened the border, let them flood in. He fought Texas. Every time Texas would put up barriers in the Rio Grande or something, he took them to court, make them remove the barriers. He fought Texas in the courts. Congress tried to impeach the Homeland Security Director under Biden, Mayorkas. They impeach him in the House of Representatives. They send the articles of impeachment to the Senate, and the Democrat-led Senate refused to even hold a trial. That's how bad the immigration problem was under Joe Biden. He let millions in under his administration. And now we're just supposed to let them stay? No, absolutely not. Take a listen.
The number of people crossing into the U.S. from the southern border has hit an all-time high.
All-time high. This is in 2023. This report came out, I think it was October. October 2023 is the date on this. All-time high.
The number of people crossing into the U.S. from the southern border has hit an all-time high.
Last month, Customs and Border Protection saw more than 260,000 southern border crossings, which is a record. So Mills Hayes is live for us tonight. Mills, what are the concerns there?
Hey, John and Christina. Well, here in the El Paso sector, we actually have seen less traffic over the last few days than we did just a few weeks ago. And here in Sunland Park, New Mexico, this is a couple of miles down from the city of El Paso. This is where CBP sources tell me they are seeing the most traffic right now. They are seeing mostly single adult males cross.
Single adult males, mostly single adult males, record numbers of single adult males, and you don't want these people deported? Are you crazy? Illegal border crossings from Mexico reach highest record in December before January null. This is in 2024. So this is in 2024, and this article comes out in January 2024. So in December of 2023, that's what they're saying, that illegal border crossings were reached the highest on record in December before the January lull. So what happens in January is that as you get into 2024, it's election year, and Biden knows that the border is a huge issue, that he's got to do something. So Biden actually shows that he had the ability to close the border without any new legislation or anything in that last year, because he's an election year. So he started to secure the border in that last year. And that's why I say he let in record numbers only for the first 3 years, and then they knew that they had to close it to show they were doing something in the last year because it was an election year. But millions of people, record numbers, came across under Joe Biden. What's the border look like today under Donald Trump? How have border crossings increased or decreased in the past 150 days of the Donald Trump administration? Take a listen.
Border policies are serving as a deterrent at the U.S. southern border as illegal crossings have hit another record low.
Record low. So they were hold on. Hold on. So they were record high under Joe Biden And now they're record low under Donald Trump. That's weird.
President Trump's border policies are serving as a deterrent at the U.S. southern border as illegal crossings have hit another record low. In June, Border Patrol encountered the lowest number of migrants along the southwestern border since the 1960s, when the agency started tracking the data. According to Border Patrol data released by the Department of Homeland Security, agents apprehended just over 6,000 migrants between southern border ports of entry last month. That's down from more than 83,000 in June of 2024.
So a lot of this has to do with deterrence and that people are just, Donald Trump talking about, and people are saying, oh no, they're making fun of immigrants, calling this detention center alligator Alcatraz. No, that's part of the propaganda. That's part of the messaging that Donald Trump wants to put out there, is that, look, you're not welcome. You're going to have problems if you stay here. Donald Trump and the Trump administration and Homeland Security has been running this ad since February. And I want you to take and pay attention to what Kristi Noem says here in this ad, because a lot of people are talking about the speech that Donald Trump gave over the weekend, I think on the 4th of July, where he says, we're going to do something as far as legislatively about farm workers. And he's been talking about this. And all these people are saying, well, Trump supports amnesty, or that. I have a little bit more time. Let's play the clip of Charlie Kirk. This went viral today. And he's talking about saying that the deep state is trying to force Trump to do amnesty. Take a listen.
As I am doing this broadcast, and this is bigger than anything with Epstein, this is bigger than anything with tax cuts. It is happening right now in Washington, D.C. And I can say this from firsthand experience, that people are pushing President Trump for amnesty.
So people are pushing Trump to do amnesty is the claim that Charlie Kirk is making, which is completely ridiculous. You're going to see why here in a moment.
They are pushing him for mass legalization of illegals. Now, President Donald Trump, of course, would never push for amnesty.
Well, President Donald Trump would never push for amnesty. That's a flat out lie, Charlie Kirk. That's an absolute lie. Donald Trump, if you don't know, has been for amnesty going back to 2015 when he first announced his run for presidency. Newsweek, November 2015. Who knew? Trump favors amnesty for undocumented immigrants. And if you read this article is based on this article. Message to GOP. Trump supports amnesty. November 13th, 2015. And if you read this, Trump supports amnesty, but he supports every immigrant leaving and then creating a policy that allows those people to come back legally and be legalized in a legal way. This is the policy that Trump has supported going back to 2015. So Charlie Kirk is wrong when he says Trump would never support amnesty. No, Trump supports amnesty. Trump tried to get an immigration deal done in his first administration. He tried to do DACA, and Trump supports amnesty. Trump is not a hardliner on immigration, not like most of his supporters, people like me. So going back to this ad that Kristi Noem and Homeland Security has been running since February, take a listen to what she says here.
Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border, for deporting criminal illegal immigrants, and for putting America first. President Trump has a clear message for those that are in our country.
This is the message.
Leave now. If you don't, we will find you, and we will deport you. You will never return.
If we catch you, listen to what they're saying. They're saying leave now. Leave now, deport, self-deport, go back to your home country. And if she's going to say that if you leave now, there may be an opportunity. And I believe that there is, based on what Trump said over the weekend. I believe that they're going to try to do some legislation to streamline for these people that do leave, that self-deport, but have a job here and have a life here and don't have a criminal record. They're going to create some legislation to streamline the process where those people are going to be able to come back. But if they fine you and you don't leave and then you're deported, you're never coming back, is what Kristi Noem says here. Take a listen.
Of Homeland Security. Thank you, President Donald J. Trump, for securing our border, for deporting criminal illegal immigrants, and for putting America first. President Trump has a clear message for those that are in our country illegally. Leave now. If you don't, we will find you, and we will deport you. You will never return. For too long, weak politicians left our borders wide open. They flooded our communities with drugs, human trafficking, and violent criminals. They put American lives at risk. Well, those days are over. If you leave now, you may have an opportunity to return and enjoy our freedom and live the American dream.
So if you leave now, so they're trying to encourage people to self-deport. If you leave now, you may have an opportunity to return. I do believe that they're going to create a process for people to return. But part of what Trump's policy is not just about going out and arresting people. It's a deterrent. He's trying to encourage these people to self-deport, to leave on your own, and many are. He's also securing the border. I had a lot more that I wanted to share. Not a lot more, but we'll see what we get into on Friday. Thank you guys for joining me today, and I'll see you guys on Friday.